right, we're about a minute into the hour, so I think this is a good time to get started. What do you think, Joker?
Yeah, definitely. And a lot of people are joining. Of course, depending on wherever they are in the world, they might be just coming out of meetings or just about to, just finish the day, just like me. Maybe I shall start in that context because I'm probably the farthest away. I'm literally, if you're based in the West Coast of the US, I'm literally on the other side of the planet. I'm in Istanbul, Turkey right now. It is just 2 minutes past 8 p.m. where I am. So just, settling nicely for the evening. And, I'm one of the co-hosts here. Of course, Blake is leading the DevRel chapter. It's nice to see you all, and thanks for joining. So I think I shall just, turn it over to Blake for a proper introduction right now.
Yeah. So thanks so much, everybody, for joining. This is Blake over on the CMX Connect side. We've got a DevRel chapter. If there's anything exciting that you ever want to see, definitely let me know. The good thing for today is you made it here, so that really says something about where you are. So if you're here, you're doing something right, because we've got like some of the most amazing, inspiring people that you'll ever see. But not just that. Like there's so many boring webinars, right? So this is not that boring webinar where you're just going to sit into chat. So today, during the Q&A session, if you have a question, and we will bring you up onto the stage. You don't have to like put on your videos. So if you're in your bathrobe and anything crazy like that, having a bad hair day like me, you don't have to share your video, but you're going to come up on stage with your audio. You're going to be able to ask questions and engage. So this isn't one of those boring webinars where you just put you in a chat, you fall asleep, and you wake up 30 minutes like, wait, what was that? What did I get away from this? And then secondly, just with Wesley, Tessa, and Maddie, thank you so much for all you do in our industry. So many people look up to you. You inspire and touch so many people's lives. It is a for me and Ilker to have you here today. So definitely thanks for that. In my life, I'm over at NetData, always doing live shows, trying to find speakers, all that great stuff. My co-host is Ilker, ex-Google. He just went around Europe meeting community professionals, doing that all sorts of things. And then next month, we've got an amazing St. Patrick's Day DevRel celebration that we're doing with like dance contests, meme contests, all sorts of stuff. And other big surprises. I won't give it all away. Ilker's going to start throwing stuff at me, but can't say no to a St. Patrick's Day DevRel event with lots of dancing. So we've got Tessa covered and everybody else. With that said, let's turn it over to everybody to introduce themselves on our panel. I'll try to stay out of this way as much as possible because I know everybody's here for Wesley, Tessa, and Maddie.
Hello, my name is Wesley Faulkner. I work as a head of community for a company called Single Store. I've been in DevRel for a little over 4 years with multiple roles from head of community to technical community manager to developer advocate. I've kind of done a little bit of everything. And for database companies to startups to large enterprises. So I have a little bit of a lot of things.
So my name is Tessa. I am a DevRel coach and consultant at Advocacy, which I'm very excited to be doing most recently. I have been in DevRel, gosh, I don't know, probably 5 to 6 years. I actually fluke fell into it and didn't know it was DevRel, which has been really cool. But my first role actually as an engineer was me building a Guitar Hero community because I'm a nerd and wanted to bring people together. So I've been bringing devs together for a really long time. And I help, early stage startups, enterprise companies, been at Twitter, variety of different places, and really just enjoy bringing developers together. And this is just my true passion. So I'm very happy to be here. Also realizing my internet might suck a little bit. So apologies for that. I don't have the best internet.
Who does really? Raise your hand if you have the best internet. So we can all be mad at you. Yeah, so I'm Maddie Stratton. I do DevRel, Dev Advocacy things at Pulumi. I've been there for about a year. I don't know, the same thing, like Wesley and Tessa were like, I've been doing DevRel X amount of time. I'm like, I don't know, a bunch of time. And then also before it was my job, I was kind of doing it. But I definitely come more from an ops and infrastructure side than not to put divisions in any kind of way, but the way I always explain, if it's kind of fun because we're talking about what is DevRel. So let me just say one fun thing. If you're a single person and you're trying to date and people ask what you do and you developer advocacy, that is hard. And so I always just tell people I worked in ops for 20 years and now they pay me to talk about it. So that's, one way of what these kind of things might be. Also, if anybody has good suggestions on how to update your Bumble profile to explain that you're a dev advocate, I am here to hear that. So
Influencer.
there you go.
Very cool. In Vegas, we just call them influencers in the wild. I think there's like a whole Instagram for that, but they're everywhere, always filming stuff. So it's amazing. I don't know. Usually on community and dating life, we just say we work in marketing. Like community out is explains. Like we're just marketing stuff. Let's go over to our first topic. We've got like 1 minute each for you. There's no like buzzer or anything like that. But our first topic that we wanted to start out with today is what tactics do you leverage to build relationships with devs and developers? And Wesley.
Me. I've relied on my good looks for most of my career, but in my older age, it's failing me. And so I try to be genuine and to be honest. And that's both what I do know and what I don't know. And I think if you are able to express the things that you do know, people believe you more. When you express the things you don't know, people know that that's probably what you don't know, and just be able to bring in other resources and also use that as an opportunity to learn. The community, generally speaking, is not just a taker, they're a giver. And so I learned through each experience by being truly like honest and transparent about my knowledge and where I find my knowledge, and not just be a hoarder of knowledge, but also do the, teach a person the fish kind of way of doing knowledge exchange.
I love that, Wesley. I actually put that quote in a blog post that I wrote recently, and I felt weird doing it because the quote is like, teach a man to fish, but I was like, it's the like age-old quote. Like I have to leave it the way it is, but definitely wanted to revise it. Love what you shared. I think I can relate to that a lot. I actually have like this thing that I call the building trust model, and I have a blog post on it on the Devocate blog, but it's like 3 simple steps. The first one is do your research, right? Like figure out who they are. What do they care about? Listen to them, really like get ingrained with what they're thinking about. And the second one is like, make them feel seen, but like provide a value, right? And so when you see them, when you understand what they want and you're listening to them, there's some value you can provide, like connecting them with someone or giving them a thought leadership opportunity like this one, or giving them a shout out on social, right? Like provide some kind of value that is going to drive impact for them based on what they're motivated by. And then that third step is like make the ask. So whether you want to bring them into your community, whether you want to see if they want to give you feedback or whatever that might look like, it's like make that ask after you've done that research, you provided that value. And then kind of like, the last thing that I think all of us in DevRel really do is like continue to elevate them, like continue to do your research, continue to provide values, and then continue to make the ask after you do that. So it's like this cycle of building trust.
I think I kind of would combine both things, right? Like the being genuine where that comes from. And I want to tread slightly lightly because part of, I made the joke or the comment earlier that I worked in ops for 2 decades and now they pay me to talk about it. To be clear, that's not the only way to be a DevRel, right? This is not me saying like that you have to have been in the trenches to be able to do it. In fact, I feel like the fact that I was in the trenches for 20 years is me doing DevRel on easy mode, right? I don't have to work to build empathy with the folks doing this work because I just got it for free by being in the bad stuff. So you have to have some way that have that empathy, and it can be done through just conversation. I like to think in developer advocacy, it's definitely a full duplex thing. I should be listening at least just as much as I'm talking to our community and to our users and the people we're trying to uplift. But the one thing I want to add on to Tessa's point, which all of the motions she's talking about are things that we are actively doing in our team to sort of say who are the people in the community that whose voices we can amplify, who can come and do that, because it scales differently. Is a lot of it is make it as easy as possible for people to be able to do that, right? Like, you don't just go out to somebody, for example, and be like, hey, do you want to write a blog post? You want to go and say, hey, cool, I have an idea. Do you want to collaborate on it? Maybe is the thing. Or we have this, give lots of options and make that glide path really easy. But I love Tessa's point that you then have to follow up and you have to keep that going. And there's things you can do, and this is I know we ran over a minute here. There's reaching out to ask people to sort of bring them up to a closer place. But then there's also the stuff that they're already doing and just being an amplifier of that. And as long as you're respectful with your asks, people tend to not say no. So I'll just say this, both Tessa and Wesley know this because they've done things for me. Almost nobody says no to me when I ask them to do something, like to do anything. And the reason is because I choose my social capital and because I'm respectful. And people know if they say no, I'm like, cool, let's do another thing. So your reputation for that is what lets you have that.
Awesome. That's an amazing topic. And it's like, for so many of the companies, it's like, and I know Tessa had talked about it, it's like, hey, we want to start marketing to developers. And it's like, has anyone started to work with building trust first before we try to it's kind of like, if you start with marketing first and all that other stuff, and Tessa has some amazing stuff. Don't miss her Twitter and other stuff, but it's like that point where people race past and things like that. Ilker, any points from you?
It's just a great summary. It's basically a facilitator, a trust maker, so to speak. And of course, in amidst all this, you've got to be a leader as well, because there's a lot of places that are quite murky that have not been discovered. This is a recent and a new thing. So at the end of the day, it's any thoughts, anything that can be taken away from today's talk would be really, really beneficial for anyone who's wishing to walk this path.
Awesome. And then on to our next. Oh, sorry.
I just wanted to follow. Iker reminded me of something that I've said many times, and I want everyone to remember this. Is that my phrase is DevRel contains multitudes. Okay. The way that other organizations do it is different. The way that individuals do it is going to be different and requires lots of different kinds of people.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. That's amazing. Put that into the chat. We'll get that t-shirt. Next topic, we'll have a minute each. Ilker has the buzzer ready to zap people. What does it mean for DevRel to be a multiplier to you? And we will start with Wesley once again.
All right, I'm going to do the whole thing like a political debate where I'll tack in on the last question before getting to that one. I want to say that basically people want to be seen. And so sometimes it's asking for their feedback. Sometimes it's acknowledging their work, but that's a big part of it, is just letting people be seen. That being said, multiplier for work, I think in terms of those rigid structures, it's kind of like people want to be seen there too. Companies look like just a big facade, and you don't necessarily can see the people in them. And inside of a company, we have these silos of departments. I think DevRel is really great as breaking down those silos, being able to hand walk over documents, be able to explain and give context to the documentation team or to marketing team or to sales. When you are able to say that these are humans on both on the inside and humans on the outside, and humans within each other, I think that helps in terms of the multiplier. I've been able to talk to salespeople and just hey, what is the thing that you don't understand that you're selling? What are the things that you're getting that you don't know how to address? How do you talk to the different parts of the company to get this next thing, either it's marketing collateral or a sales process through? And I've been able to walk them through it by being their advocate to these other departments and vice versa, talking to marketing, saying like, okay, I'm embedded with the community. So I know how some of this stuff will come off. Let's refine some of this messaging and some of these talking points. Or even talking to pre-sales, saying like, okay, now I understand the type of questions that you are getting, and I understand that I can help defer some of those by putting it either in our forums or making sure that marketing knows about this, and just reinforcing all these other different departments and helping them talk to each other by being that glue to connect all of them together to see that these are people with needs, and to shore up some of the abilities that they already have, and making sure that when they talk to each other, that it's done in a way that is constructive and helps the whole in a systematic way.
Wesley stole my answer. No, I'm just kidding. I did have a defined answer already, and it was funny because a part of it is a lot of what you just shared. But, you know, I think especially for like this audience, like developer relations at the end of the day is really cultivating a community with your developer audience, right? We, as community builders, and a lot of CMX members I know fall into this, you know, that's really what we're doing. And we're doing that through those different like loops of information and those different conversations. So as Wesley shared, like I had my exact example. If marketing is sending out a newsletter or a survey, review that before it's sent out, right? So it's this kind of multitude of being able to say, hey, I know this audience, right? I know what they're looking for, just as Wesley has shared, and let me help. And I think, you know, to kind of not reiterate exactly what he shared, I think the one thing that I've found really great impact in is like actually helping recruiting. It's like getting in with the recruiting team, getting in with the HR team, getting in with the engineering team. A lot of engineers actually want to go out and blog. They don't maybe want to go public speak, but they want to talk about what they've learned in their role. They want to talk about what they've been able to advance in their career, right? Maybe they're looking to join that next role in a few years, and they're trying to build up that thought leadership in some capacity. So being able to kind of leverage a lot of those different needs and internal wants and desires from actual contributors can be really impactful too, because before you know it, you're like, hey, engineering team, come and fulfill our developer blog, or come and help us on our content strategy, or share something that you've learned. And then in turn, we flip that into recruiting materials, or we flip that into something that we can actually drive forward to drive complete company impact as a whole. I mean, I think kind of coming back to like the first answer, really, when we're talking about elevating folks, and like Maddie really shared that, I think in that type of scalable way, right? Is like, that's that multiplier, is like when you can have that loop between internal stakeholders get it, DevRel creates those connections, external stakeholders are invested, they're excited, they want to become what I call super fans, right? Then you can start to scale and magnitude all of the efforts that everyone is really doing. So yeah, that's kind of my random answer that I wasn't prepared for now, since Wesley just like knocked it out of the park.
So I promised that Maddie, the cynical DevRel, was going to show up. So I'm going to be the filthy capitalist that talks about money for a minute when we talk about this. So just so that we're clear, I love doing developer advocacy because I love the people. That said, all of us do this because we get paid, and we continue to get paid because our companies continue to make money. And I think everybody should know that if you aren't making or selling the thing, you are in danger always. That doesn't mean that you have to. What I'm getting at is sales is okay. And we have this thing sometimes in this kind of work that we do where we're like, oh, I am pure and untouched by filthy ducats and the money and those slimy salespeople we have. Well, first of all, I've said this before, that if your understanding is the only reason that people buy your product is they've been tricked into it, why are you working there? Right? Like, you want to sell the product because it's helpful. And it doesn't mean you need to be in sales. If you want to do that, you should be in sales. But so all of the things about how we can help these areas, and I agree with, with marketing, with the messaging, with sales, so they understand. One point I'll bring in is just always be careful how you approach that, because you kind of need to offer it, but not in a way because, like, I know you don't understand our product, let me teach it to you, just because people aren't open to that. And this is where a fine line gets walked. So I'm going to give a couple tactical examples of how DevRel can help field. Understand, it depends a lot on the size of your org. It depends a lot on the type of DevRel. So this is me personally. One of the things, when I was at an org that had really good pre-sales engineers, so I didn't have to run the risk that I was turning into a sales engineer, Some of our global regions really understood how, from a marketing and sales perspective, they could leverage our advocates. So, for example, let's say this, as it happens, it was Australia. That's the fun part. I was going to be in region, let's say, for some conferences. And what would happen is the salespeople would set up meetings for me to go and meet with customers and prospects, but not to talk about our product. By the way, product was PagerDuty. This is why it'll make sense. But to go in there like, hey, you know what? Maddie's going to be in region. I'd love for him to be able to come in and talk to you about your DevOps transformation or your incident response process or whatnot. And I would just come in and I wouldn't even talk about PagerDuty. Like, I mean, if they had a question, I might answer it, but that wasn't it. And I can't tell you how many times I'd walk out of that meeting and the rep says, I've been trying to meet that CIO for 6 months. Right. So the last sort of thought on this, and again, I know this is getting a little into like, we don't want to admit it. We fight for the users and we're pure, but whatever. When I worked at Chef, I said the two best salespeople at Chef were Adam Jacob, the founder, and Nathan Harvey, the VP of community, because nobody saw them coming. And I don't mean they were tricky, but we know ourselves, as soon as we're talking to a sales rep, we go on guard because we feel like they're going to take advantage of us. We can have a really honest conversation with our dev advocates that isn't going to be manipulated or used to screw us over, but just like it's just our natural way because, yeah, so that's a thing we can do. Yes.
Drop on that one. That's
I don't know if
amazing.
that was cynical enough or not, but you know, we'll.
Wow, that was absolutely amazing. Thanks for that. We will move into our next topic, and we'll actually have Maddie go first. And
so Wesley can steal everything.
Yeah, we'll keep the train. We'll keep it rolling. So, what is DevRel to you?
Okay, so you know what? To me, it's. I alluded to it before, and again, this is the network engineer coming in when I say it's a full duplex, not half duplex. So I believe that in developer relations, as a developer, and just in general, is we advocate to and for our users, to our people who are adopting both our product or the tangential and non-orthogonal. I couldn't remember the opposite of orthogonal for a minute, so I made up a word. So we're not speaking. That's the difference of, we used to call ourselves sometimes evangelists, right? Which is a tricky word in general, but I like taking away from it because that's a one-way conversation, right? So we're advocating to and for, and that's all the stuff like Wesley talked about bringing that feedback in. We're empathy engineers. That's what DevRel is. We're empathy engineers.
That was a mic drop. We are empathy engineers. Like, let's just leave it at that. Sounds great. I assume I'm next with the past lineup. So there's actually a really great quote, and Mary Thingvall put it in her book, The Business Value of Developer Relations. It was stated by, I hope I'm saying this right, Ewan Dennis, but essentially it's to the community I represent, the company to the company I represent, to the community. I must have both of their interest in mind at all times. And I think that statement right there just like nails it and really just reiterates exactly what Maddie just shared is that, and Caroline is actually in here too, and she has a really awesome statement. And the other amazing book, oh yes, Wesley just showed. So this is Caroline's book. Strongly recommend this as well. There is also a really amazing quote in that book too that essentially in regards to really says that, like, here, actually, let me pull up my notes because I have something close to it. Really, it's essentially that like DevRel is enabling developers, right, to find that success while also driving that impact for the company priorities and goals. So coming back to that magnitude conversation, I think we all really reiterated a lot of like what DevRel is and how you drive that magnification, I guess. There's also a really great blog post out there that was put together by the Google DevRel team about competencies. And it has this amazing chart that I feel really just drives it home when you're talking to stakeholders. And to kind of just explain that chart very quickly in my 1 minute of time is that you've got your engineering and your product team, they're delivering, they're building. You've got your DevRel team sitting in the middle. Then you've got this then you've got your actual developers on the outside, right? And so it is a combination of a feedback loop between DevRel and developers and a feedback loop between DevRel and product and engineering, as well as all your other internal stakeholders. And it's not to say that there aren't folks who are out there talking to your developers, but it's to say really that DevRel is kind of that middle team, that middle function, that it is there, again, to do that advocating on both sides. So great blog post to look up and just check out that chart. It really just kind of nails it in one visionary item. I'll throw it in the chat if I can find it here while Wesley's
Okay, so I have to think of a new and unique way to answer this question. And so I'm going to say that we in DevRel fix holes in funnels and patch potholes on developer journeys. So if is there material coming in a funnel that is losing people because it's just not there, then we help find those and help make sure that we patch those holes, getting someone all the way to the point of purchase or even the point of leaving a product. So we want to make sure that that whole process is done. And the developer journey, coming in with wide eyes, figuring out new developers coming into a process, where are the parts that they stumble, where are the parts that they trip, where are the parts that they fall, and making sure we patch those holes so that their glide path to success is as frictionless as possible.
Excellent. Very good. All right. So this is the part so me and Elker can stay out of the way. You are here for some of the best, most inspirational people in the world of developer and community, Wesley, Tessa, and Maddie. So in a Q&A, we are going to bring you up to stage. When you have a question, you do not have to turn your video on. So we definitely respect people wherever you are in the world. Up first, we've got Sean Falconer with a question. So Sean, I am going to bring you up to stage. Just give me 1 second here. So Sean, feel free. We've got you set up to come onto the stage and ask your question live with Maddie, Tessa, and Wesley.
There we go. I unmuted. I turned my video on, but there's quite a disaster going on in the room behind me. So I will save everybody that. So my question was that it's a little bit of a cheeky question, but you're on the edge of a fast moving river. Your favorite DevRel tactics for building developer awareness, which could be blogging, public speaking, social, creating videos, creating demos, they all fall in the river. Despite your amazing swimming abilities, you only have time to save one. Which one do you save and why?
This is a loaded question, Sean. Dang. I know my answer. Wait, let me look at the list. Do I have to choose from the list or can I pick yeah, well, I'll choose from the list.
What is this list?
It's in the Q&A.
Oh, in
So
the Q&A. Oh, got it. Okay.
yeah, so it's blogging, public
Yeah, I
speaking,
see. Okay.
social, creating videos, and creating demos.
If you have something else, you can
Is this
choose to save that child instead.
Is this us as individuals or like as for our program overall?
I will let you choose your own adventure.
One of those is easier than the other.
Yeah, I have an answer for that. So I'll give it after you, Tessa.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to say blogging because honestly, I'm really tricky and I could find a way to take the blogging and put a demo in there and put like a video in there. And like, I know that maybe that's cheating. But I think at the end of the day, like, I think that technically that written form of content could be delivered. I do actually think though, if I had to say anything, it would be not per se social, but it would be like the community engagement, right? So like if it was all the things and I had to give up every single program, I would keep what I call community or external engagement, which includes like Stack Overflow, Reddit, GitHub, developer communities, that kind of thing. And I would get rid of all the content production because I would just relate to someone one-to-one because I'm like a human lover and I like engaging with humans. So, but blogging out of that list.
Mine, hands down, not even close, would be social. For me, because one, I love immediate feedback. And so it's that endorphin drip, like constantly being able to do that and get a response almost immediately. And two, it is more bi-directional, like unlike some of these other speaking. Yes, you have a Q&A after or during, depending on the format, which is great, but it's just a small subset of those who are there that actually participate or feel comfortable. With social, I feel like I'm able to continue that relationship, not just like beyond that individual reaction, and I can choose to reach out to them also. So for me, social's the medium that I'm most comfortable in, so that's why I'm biased towards it. And specifically like Twitter, because it's short, it's concise, kind of like me, but not like Sanser.
So it does. I do want to like +1 on Tessa because I'm a big believer in content reuse. So talks become blogs, become videos, become whatever, and a lot to, just so we're clear, part of that is so I can like tick off my OKRs with my boss and say I did all the things, but also because people like to consume content in different ways, right? Now, pre-COVID, like in the olden days, for me, it would be public speaking, because to me, when I give talks, it is not just about the Q&A. It's like there's the overall part of being like I'm speaking to someone, and then I have conversations with them for a day or two afterwards that were started from that. But that's why I'm saying pre, because like public speaking now, and this is not me like, oh God, I'm sick of virtual and recorded. It's just like the experience of doing that is different. It doesn't mean it's lower fidelity, but I think that social engagement too, like Wesley, to that point, not necessarily like being like a social media influencer, but being able to have community conversations that are in the open, I think is pretty key. And is one that I would keep. And if you look at what I spend most of my time doing, you'd probably see that that's what I agree with. So it's kind of nice when you have unofficial OKRs on your team about talking trash on Twitter. I'm just going to say that may or not be true. I don't know over at our team, but it's definitely unofficial, but not unreal.
Awesome. Thanks for that question, Sean. And before you leave, Sean, what is your answer? What is it for you?
I mean, I think there was great answers here, but I think a lot of it's, of course, context dependent. But I think from my own personal experience, I've seen a lot of value from blogging. And again, I think as multiple people have mentioned, it's not just about blogging. It's about like, sort of creating content that builds off of each other. Like, blogging is a complement to a video, or a video is a complement to blog, or speaking engagement, or, or a sample or something like that. Those kind of all build to create one, really rich piece of content. And I think the advantage that something like blogging or writing gives you is that if you do it properly, where you get sort of SEO value from it, it kind of becomes an evergreen thing that continues to grow and serve. And if you do it right, then it's just like an organic traffic that is building awareness without you even having to pay attention to it. Whereas other things require more sort of pushing and proactive. Social engagement makes a ton of sense, but you need to be actively on there, sort of pushing that experience, versus being able to create something that if it is successful, then it continues to grow without you sort of babying it.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Sean, for your question and coming up on stage with us. Good
Right,
luck with whatever is going on in your background.
It's scary.
Awesome. Up next, we've got a book author of developer relations, Carolyn. We're going to get you up to stage for your question. Wow, thanks for attending. They will make their way. There's Carolyn. Hey, awesome.
Good morning.
Morning.
So do I ask? Yeah.
Yeah, feel free to ask away. Developer relations book that you and James did, amazing. We did a CMX a while ago, but get that book, a link's in.
Thanks for that. So my question to everybody is, like, how do we collectively work together to advocate for DevRel, not just be DevRel advocates? So, we get to the point where we're actually, part of building that journey, as opposed to, like Wesley's saying, filling in the potholes later. Any ideas?
I have a million, but I think you already know that. You go, Maddie. I went first.
Okay, I was going
last
to
time.
say it's been very interesting because I've been in different organizations, and so there's not, you know, a lot of it is the first thing is identifying how much advocating for DevRel, like where the problem is. Is the problem a misunderstanding? Is the problem I don't even understand why this is helpful, you know, and where does it grow out of, right? Like, so one of the things I found, like, but how do you advocate to be better? Part of that is like you need what doing as much of this stuff in the open as you can, I think, is really helpful. I'll even go to this point. Like, we are doing at my company, we have a brown bag we're doing in a few weeks that's basically called "What Would You Say You Do Here?" Right, and it's just for DevRel. It's based around not only because I think, I mean, we're relatively small. You know, Palumi's not huge. You know, I think most of the people inside the company, they know who the DevRel team is. They kind of know what they think we do. But I know there's stuff they don't know, but also all of the things about that force multiplier thing. Like, the other part of it is, how can we help you? And then when people know, because I think that's been my biggest problem, is that people who understand what your DevRel department does, they know how to find you. I gave the example with, there was one region at PagerDuty where the sales and marketing people knew exactly how to use us. Nobody else would do it, right? So yeah, that actually just introduced more problems than answers, probably. But yeah, first figure out what the problem is, I guess, right? Like the gap.
Honestly, I feel like, Caroline, it's your book, right? It's like getting that book in the hands of more stakeholders. I think that I believe that, I'm a big fan, as you know. I believe that conceptually, engineers understand how they want to be treated and how they want to engage with folks, right? Like, as engineers ourselves, most of us, I believe, you know, we know what we like and we don't like. So I think what the root problem for our industry is currently is getting those founders and those executive boards and those stakeholders and folks that are actually starting to form these organizations to understand the pivotal contributions that DevRel plays. Because, you know, going through your book, right, like, I cannot reiterate again how much folks should read it, but going through some of those early chapters, it's really talking about what is that value proposition to developers. Oftentimes, like, I just had a client I was talking to and they're like, well, we don't need to define that, we've already done it. And I was like, but have you? And so it's just one of those things of like really getting in and saying, if you're going to build a product that's going to be targeting developers, like, either bring in a DevRel consultant, read the book, or start to, you know, recruit or think about DevRel like right off the bat. If you're going to be targeting developers, DevRel should be something you're thinking about immediately. And so I think as an industry, we have to educate that. We have to educate the impact that we drive and why we need to be there at like MVP level or ideation level, right? If you're going to build something, talk to someone who understands that so that you can work through that process of building a business from the beginning in the right way. And I think it's more education like the book and more education and instillment with like founders and leaders and getting outside of our DevRel community and you know, advocating with each other and going into some of those accelerator groups and some of those other, you know, VCs and founders and other things. So y'all get it. So I'll digress on that, but that's my 2 cents.
I'll add a little bit to that. Is just that I think this panel is an example of when we're trying to talk about the thing, being able to bring up all the nuance and all the little cracks that people don't necessarily know. And so it's you give an answer, the next person gives a more detailed, nuanced answer. The last person gives a harder answer. I think we just need to keep talking about this and to the point where we have to be more specific. It reminds me of the start of when people started talking about diversity at work. And that meant at the beginning, we need more women. And that was the answer that we got over and over and over, and initiatives we got over and over until people started talking about it more. It's like, oh, there's more than just hiring more women. We need to hire more people of underrepresented groups or people who have who are maybe neurodivergent. And like even then in neurodiversity, we when you say we need someone who's neurodivergent, and it's usually someone who's autistic. That's the default. Instead of hearing all the people who have dyslexia, PTSD, or all the different facets of that. So as we grow, as we talk more about it, people are starting to hear more of the nuance and more of the little intricacies and the things that people don't know about. Because the next person or the next group or the next time that topic comes up, people need to do better. And as people do better, we'll all do better as a whole, as more people enter this space and just keep talking about it.
I just want to respond, and I like the idea, actually, Tessa, that you were talking about. So maybe collectively we need to get our own road show and go outside of our own DevRel communities, and let's go and talk to VCs, and let's go make sure we are headlining some other tech conferences or whatever it is, and get outside our own heads. I think would be really helpful. Thank you.
Plan that roadshow. I'm in, by the way.
Yeah.
Wow, amazing thing. And we see got people already buying the book. And Maddie, go. Sorry.
I was just going to say, actually, along those lines, though, what might be kind of interesting, and again, like Carolyn, I haven't read Carolyn's book, but I also did just buy it. But again, like having kind of maybe a little bit of a playbook for these sort of informal internal ways of justifying, like, yes, go read Carolyn's book, go read Mary's book that has all this data the same way that like we all read, at least like those of us in DevOps read Accelerate so that we had all the data, but you're not going to go to every sales rep in your organization and say, go read Carolyn's book, right? Like, so I think it might be kind of cool if we had, could get a roadshow in a box, right? Like, hey, if you want to do something internally, here's like something you can do over and then tweak it to your needs over a brown bag, or how you get the other folks doing that. But yeah, we'll add that to the long list of things that we're never going to get around to doing.
It into our other travel, right? If there's a conference going on, it'd be like, we'll just create a crew and just be like, there's an extra day we'll add on.
All right. So up next, Nathan Loading has a question. So I will bring you up to stage, Nathan.
A question that was originally asked. It's actually building on a question that originally Jeffrey asked. So
everybody hear me?
Jeffrey would like to come up.
I knew we were just live
Jeffrey
streaming browser, so I'm making sure. I mean, Jeffrey asked a question right before me, but it's sort of a riff on that, and then also sort of a riff on what Carolyn was driving at too. So, if you're coming into a startup that feels very strongly about DevRel but doesn't already have a community behind it, I'm just kind of curious to hear kind of what your thoughts are, or your top tips on kind of starting to build that community. How do you find your community? Where do you start, and kind of what are those first 3 steps or so?
I know Tessa has to drop off, so Tessa, go ahead and answer first, if you could.
Yeah, I will. Thank you for that, Wesley. I actually was going to put my list in the chat because I've got like these 11 steps that it's really long, but I'm still going to put it in here. Of like, oh, and it didn't really like divide them. So sorry, you'll have to use capital letters. But essentially, like I think like first step or first few steps is like learn their language, right? So I alluded to that with the previous question of like getting into that community engagement, diving into like what are they talking about, whether that's capturing feedback from users that you already have, or whether that's going out and doing your market research. What are people in your industry or competitors of your product? What are those users talking about? And if you're a little further along, right, like what are your actual users talking about, both internally and externally, and then creating that space, right? And so a lot of folks have this myth that like, oh, I only have 10 users, I shouldn't create a community. No, you maybe don't need like a fully fledged, amazing community platform, but you need to build community, whether that be through, a very small Slack group, although Slack has problems. I'm not saying Slack is your solution, but or Discord, right? Or even just an email chain or some other forum that you can bring folks in and say, hey, let's all communicate together. And then that starts to expand. But as you're doing that, you're still continually listening, right? And then kind of that third step is like providing those quick wins. And so quick wins being you start to produce content based on what you've heard. You start to drive innovation based on what you've heard. You start to do whatever it is that audience really needs. And then that list kind of keeps going on. Sorry that it didn't actually divide it all out, but there's all the kind of these next steps of like giving them the stage space, engaging with them, which engaging with them is like hiring a team, right? Providing that stage space of like bringing folks together like this, giving them opportunities to be decision makers. Can they come into your roadmap reviews? Can they drive where your roadmap is going? Sharing your secrets with them. What is it that your future process looks like? What's your roadmap for 24 months down the road? There's this really fun book called Superfans, and I'm actually talking about it next week with the developer relations folks. Great book, and it actually walks you through how to cultivate a community with just starting with just a few users and really scaling that to like external impact. So that's my answer there. I do actually have to jump, but yeah, I'll put that on Twitter too, because I'll put it out there just a little bit cleaner than the little ramblings that it is there.
Hey, before you leave, Tessa, round of applause for everybody, wherever you are. Get out there for congratulations on your new effort. That is so inspiring, like what you're doing there. Any little nugget on that, or how people can learn more about it and get involved with you there before you take off?
Yeah. So I've been producing content at devkit.com for a really long time. Had a few different community platforms I've been trying to patch together because I'm trying to use new products. Brought that all together, and I'm doing like a pro offering essentially, where I'm creating content still at an open source level, but also beginning to create resources, templates, slide decks you can use internally, actual like walking you through how to do DevRel. We all can do it in various different ways, right? There isn't a one way to do it, but at least giving folks a something to start with and being able to shift from. So I continually will create content also here as a coach or a consultant if folks really need to dive in. And hey, maybe Carolyn and I will pull together that roadshow and we'll start teaching founders about DevRel, and our industry will shift. But thank you all so much for having me. It's been lovely being here.
Thanks, Tessa.
Thank you very much.
Could tackle that question. Tessa is too modest to answer it this way, but I'm going to make sure it's out there. Hire her or Devocate or a company that does this type of work, because there is a lot of generic answers, but your customer, your community, your company, they're all going to be different, and there's going to be nuance to this. And so when if this is something that's important, and if it really is important, just take the time to at least have something that's personalized to your own specific needs and your developer base. I'll just say that right off the bat. Number two, if you aren't able to do that route, one is try to find that thing where if you're trying to do a community, what you want to do is try to foster co-ownership, meaning that you're not using the community and you're not demanding the community do something, but it's co-ownership in which you're both trying to invest to do something that is a win-win for both. So invest in co-ownership where you can. Either it's in feedback, either it's free product, if it's like sneak peeks, if it's like find a way that they're getting something, business leads, whatever, that you can build that co-ownership, that your success is their success and vice versa. The last part of community is that sometimes community is already there. So someone's talking about your product. They may not be talking on your properties. There might be talking somewhere else. There might be someone's obviously talking about your product. So find those resources, understand, learn the lingua franca, learn the way they like to be talked to, where they like to talk about your stuff, and then go to them before you're requiring them to come to you. So those are the three things that I would recommend just really quickly, and I'll pass it on to Maddie.
Yeah, I just sort of want to wrap up everything. I mean, Tessa gave an incredible list, so there's not very much. I just want to build on to something Wesley said, where he said, hey, bring someone in who tired of that. The other thing that goes back to, and I believe Tessa and a lot of other, I shouldn't say a lot of other people, but several other people have written on, who do you hire first? Do you hire a developer advocate, or do you hire someone to do this strategically? And my answer is you hire the strategic person first, who might be able to do some chopping wood and carrying water for a little bit. But one of the anti-patterns that I don't think I've ever seen work, and we all have stories of it, is our first hire in DevRel is an individual contributor but nobody knows what they're supposed to, and then they just sort of fumble. And I know of a couple organizations, I'm not going to name names, where I know that happened, and the person they hired had a terrible experience that it scarred them pretty hard. And then what happened in several of the cases I know where that happened, they absolutely went and hired somebody like Mary or Tessa or whatever, and they came and they righted the ship. But your opportunities don't need to have your ship righted, have your ship pointed in, like, don't have it tip over at all, right? But if you, there you go. Yeah, thanks, Wesley. That was you. You wrote a thing about that too. I knew it was someone. Anyway, also, yes, thank you for appreciating the Devo Energy Dome in the background there, Nathan. So, yeah, but thank you. That's my thoughts.
Wow, that's definitely amazing on my side. Also, just a quick note, it's like I feel like we're doing something right. I've got my own person from marketing here, Jennifer Bryston. So it's amazing when we can have our marketing teams coming out wanting to learn about developer communities. So shout out to our amazing Jennifer for being here with us. That's amazing. And one other thing, just to kind of note here, is that a lot of people, we're like remote work, we're more out there kind of individually on our own. But just want to say that, pretty much I could probably speak for all of us. If you're getting to the point where you're feeling alone, or you get anything like imposter syndrome, or am I doing something right? Pretty much all of us will set aside time to meet with you and talk to you. Like, if you're in developer relations, advocacy, working with communities, you are not alone. Feel free to reach out to somebody that's doing it. We are all in this together. So I just don't want anyone out there to feel alone, or we all got your back. We are all here for you. So if you're feeling doubt or anxiety, reach out to another practitioner out there, somebody that inspires you, or you just want to learn from. We will, in most cases, I can't speak for everyone, we will definitely throw you a Calendly link or a Cal link to talk to you. And then we are coming up on the end of our talk today. Hopefully this has been amazing for everybody, getting some time with some of the most inspiring people in Tessa, Wesley, and Maddie. We'll do a after party on the CMX Slack. I will throw a link in there. So me and Ilker will start a thread in CMX Slack. It's our after party. You can't see us dancing there, but it will be there. So I will just go around for final thoughts from Maddie, Wesley, and Ilker on today, and then I will wrap everything up. And then after that, we'll see some of you that don't have meetings, or feel free to escape your meeting and join us on CMX Slack at that link. So we can start off with Maddie with final thoughts, then go to Wesley, and then Ilker.
Yeah, I think my biggest final thought is to go back to the DevRel contains multitudes. So just and that means both as individuals. So as you're building out a DevRel team, your developer advocates do not scale horizontally, right? So everybody has different skills in different places they fit in, but also across organizations. So you can look at the way that developer advocacy is done at Microsoft or Google, and then you compare it to the way it's done at Pulumi, right? And it's very different. You talk about an organization like Google, there are hundreds and hundreds of people in developer advocacy. They run it differently. Don't expect to be the same. The way you're doing it, your needs are the right needs. And what got you to where you were were all the right decisions to get you to where you are now. But let's look forward to continue to work.
My answer, or things I would like to leave off with, is that when you're having an advocate or someone who's on developer relations for your company, they are not only embodying what's good about your product, but also the mission and the goals and the voice of what you stand for as a company. And so we've talked a lot about pro, like bringing customers in, helping developers on. But we also have a con, meaning like because of our personification of the company, we also are saying who won't work with us, like what our needs or your solution, if it's not aligned with what we're trying to do, maybe we're not the best fit, maybe some other places. And that's both on in terms of our skills, our feature set as a product, but also as a values as a company. If you are someone who does it stand for what we stand for? If we're not aligned from a value perspective, maybe we're not a good fit from there. And so there's when you think about community, it's a hard border, and you're saying what's in, but by default, that's also saying who's out. And so that is something when you're looking to build a DevRel team, that you need to make sure that they are in that circle and that they are going to personify the things that are in that circle, so that the people who are out of that circle know that they don't belong. So that's part of it as well.
You're next.
Yeah, mine will be short and sweet, which is very unexpected of me, I guess. But from the common denominator for all the discussions, which has been absolutely fantastic, it's been superb, is that DevRel is here to stay, but is also here to help. So basically, with that, you really can't go wrong, once you set that relationship.
What's amazing there is, like, we talk about some of the older developer communities. A lot of them date back to the mid 90s, late 90s, and they're still going today. So you talk about like the power of that and being transformative. Companies today are now saying like, we are dev first or dev plus. Just amazing how far we've come in a short period of time. And it's one big family. A lot of us are coming into it from different ways and angles. Like, at least on our side, like growing up, we didn't say we wanted to like be the next community manager, things like that. So we came into it from different places. But it's just so great when we have people like Maddie, Wesley, and Tessa as kind of North Stars to aspire to, that inspire us, to motivate us, realize that we are not alone. A lot of us are facing the same challenges, obstacles, blockers, issues, things like that. But just in closing, for me, we've got the after party at CMX Slack, but just a huge round of applause for Tessa, Wesley, and Maddie, not just for today, but for all they do in our industry. We can't think of the biggest, brightest stars out there that's putting such an amazing light on this profession that we are all like benefiting from. There's going to be other jobs, other people out there that are going to be able to see this in new and amazing ways. And just thanks for all the work that y'all are doing. Just hugely inspiring. And thanks for blessing us with your appearance today. It means a lot to us and hopefully for everybody attending today. I did actually remember to record it. So thanks to Oprah for throwing the boulder at me for a change. And you will get a post-event survey. So just me and Ilker strive to let us know like how we did. It'll come to your email inbox. Let us know how we're doing, anything else that you would like to see. As always, connect with us on Don't Be Shy. It's an amazing place, lots of books, lots of learning, things like that. This is Blake with CMX Connect DevRel chapter. Lots of other exciting stuff. We get the St. Patrick's Day thing next month. And that's pretty much it. Thanks again, everybody. See you at the after party. See you next month at our St. Patty's Day DevRel meme Irish dance party extravaganza. St. Patrick's Day is on March 17th. It's not on a weekend. St. Patrick's Day is on the 17th. So it'll be a lot of fun. Things like that.
Blake's birthday, so you haven't heard it from me.
Oh, it's also my mother's birthday. Although Blake's birthday is
cool.
probably more relevant to this community than my mother's birthday. But there's that.
Any birthday's cool.
Yeah, and thanks to Carolyn, Sean, everybody that asked questions, things like that. Hopefully this is amazing. But see you at the next event. Hopefully everybody connects with each other. If you didn't already know someone, we're all friendly, great stuff. See you at the after party if you can make it. Otherwise, thanks again, Tessa, Wesley, and Maddie. Have a great rest of your Thursday.